In some countries, life seems to start after dark. China is not one of these countries. Here, life happens all the time. Whether you're up at 5 a.m. hunting for breakfast, leaving the office after unpaid overtime, or taking a walk in the park in the middle of the day, you are sure to find something to do or something to see. And yet, nighttime in China takes on a life of its own. I lived and worked in China from 2009 to 2019, and no matter how difficult and lonely it got sometimes, it was the nightlife that, well, got me through the night. And when I say nightlife, I don't mean the nightlife in its traditional sense, like bars and clubs. It is more about how much life there is in the night. Most countries will place a limit on what you can do after dark. Some of these are official, shops close, public transportation stops, taxi fees double. Some are more in your head. The streets empty out, lights dim, and your natural instincts kick in. It's dark, it's unsafe. Hey, who's that walking behind me? But not in China. Here, my whole perception of what a night is has been turned on its head. If for any reason you want to get out of the house at 3 a.m., this is what you'll see. You know how some nights are just weird? You have all these thoughts, you can't sleep, you feel restless. In most places, you'd be one-on-one with this feeling, or one-on-one with the internet or the TV. In China, you can actually walk right out of your apartment, find the nearest hot pot, and just chill. And if you were not a foreigner, you wouldn't even stand out. You'd be surrounded by lots of people just like you, who, for one reason or another, don't feel like sleeping tonight. And what you can do at night in China goes way beyond food. Though there is definitely something to be said about the special culture of eating out in the street after sunset. Where I come from, if you're going out past 8 p.m., it would usually mean some sort of restaurant where you'd probably have to dress up. In China, you can leave the house in your pajamas, and I mean this absolutely literally, sit at a plastic table and have the best meal of your life. I call this the plastic stool culture, though sure, this is not the real name for it. But there is a real culture around nighttime eating in China. All the little shops and stalls that are sort of too dingy to open during the daytime come alive when it gets dark. Check out my favorite noodle shop. It's hidden in the back alley, has a very questionable hygiene rating, but I swear you will never find noodles like these in the daytime. But even if you're not into the intensity of street food, you will find lots more conventional places open after dark in China too. There are 24/7 Starbuckses, McDonald's, KFCs, and others. Now, in a lot of countries, a 24/7 McDonald's would probably not be a happy place. But in China, it kind of is. Sure, you will see a few people recovering from a late night party, but overall, these are not depressing places. Not at all. Tea shops are also open late into the night, so are massage salons, so are KTVs and spas. In fact, some spas are open 24/7. And if you're only in China for one night, you can actually spend the night at the spa instead of a hotel. China is one of those rare places in the world where you can actually easily go jogging at 1, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning as a woman and not bother looking behind your back. You can go to the park or the marina for a walk. Once when I didn't feel like sleeping, I got one of those rentable bikes and just biked from one end of the city to another. Now, before we get into how China gets to stay so active after dark, let's get this out of the way. Why? This is where the term nighttime economy comes in. It's pretty self-explanatory, but let me elaborate a bit. Nighttime economy basically describes all economic activity that happens somewhere between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Now, in a lot of cities, that activity would probably be minimal, but not in China. As we've just seen, you have night markets, restaurants and street food, shopping malls that are open late, bars, KTVs, food delivery apps, bakeries, and more. There are even official government positions in China known as nighttime district chiefs. In fact, Shanghai has 16 of them. And the nighttime economy is thriving because it has a strong client base. In fact, a recent report from China's Ministry of Commerce said that 60% of urban consumption in big cities in China takes place at night. But why? For many people in China, life actually begins when the sun sets. A lot of office workers don't leave the office until 6:30 or 7 p.m. And in some industries like tech and startups, you get the infamous 996 working schedule, which leaves them working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. Naturally, this leaves very little time for leisure, and most of this time is nighttime. It makes perfect sense that businesses want to make use of that. And all of this creates a pretty unique nighttime atmosphere. There is a lot of life in the night in China, and if you're not working 996, it's almost like you get some extra time in the day. And you can use it however you want to because everything is open, and people are not afraid to be out and about at night. But how is that possible? To me, there are two key things that make the night in China what it is: safety and lights. Since leaving Shenzhen, I've had a very hard time trying to chase down that same feeling of street safety. I've lived in other countries in Asia, Europe, Argentina, Brazil, Turkey, the US, and I'm not saying that these other countries and cities aren't safe. I'm talking about the overall feeling of safety. When the idea that something might happen to you is not even at the back of your mind, even if it's 2 a.m. and you're all dressed up and coming home from a club.
And I have to make a quick side note here. I'm talking about street safety. There are still lots of bad things that can happen to you in China if you're not careful, or even if you're simply at the wrong place at the wrong time. But when it comes to the safety of the night, China is pretty hard to beat. In Shenzhen, and I would say this is true for most major cities in China, you can go hiking in the middle of the night, solo, and not have a second thought about carrying mace with you. The city makes you feel almost invincible, and the internal curfew stops to exist. But there is a price to pay for everything, and Shenzhen has one of the highest densities of surveillance cameras in the world. It's hard to find any official data, but some independent reports state that there are close to 2 million CCTV cameras in the city, which comes down to 1 camera for every 9 people. Once you have this information, you start seeing cameras everywhere. In fact, I went and looked back through some of the everyday photos I took in China, and yes, there are cameras in the background on a lot of them. But when you're actually living in China, I will be honest, you stop noticing. Unless you're up to something shady, you don't think about them every day. And they only come up in Orwellian debates, mostly with other experts about privacy and police state. I want to be very clear here. I'm not at all saying that extreme safety justifies extreme surveillance. Honestly, I don't really know. And I want to put this question out to you. Given the option, what would you choose? Would you prefer to have a feeling of total safety, from street crime at least, in exchange for your public spaces being loaded with cameras and everything that this might entail? But there is more. Cameras in Shenzhen, and I assume the rest of China, are part of the Suolian project, often translated as the Sharp Eyes project. This is an AI-powered network, the purpose of which is basically to expand camera coverage, get video data from wider areas, and analyze it using more sophisticated tools, including facial recognition. This technology could potentially be used to track stolen vehicles, reconstruct timelines after incidents, detect unusual behavior, and so on. But the implications of these could also go way beyond crime prevention. You're basically living with eyes on you. Smart, AI-capable eyes. Here's also what's interesting. I first came to China back in 2009, and I started living in a smaller town by Chinese standards called Huizhou. I'm skipping through Google Map photos here to give you an idea. And even back then, without the overwhelming number of cameras, at least I didn't see any, it felt really safe. And when I moved to Shenzhen in 2010, I had the same feeling. I don't think I could possibly gather all the information that would explain this fully, but I can at least mention a few factors that may have contributed to this. First, even back then, China had low rates of violent crime. There is not much information for specific cities, but according to some sources, it was 3.2 incidents per 100,000 people, which is low compared to many countries worldwide. And even before high-tech monitoring, China was also known for severe consequences for breaking the law. For example, committing a robbery with a weapon came with a 10-plus year prison sentence, and possession of controlled substances could land you in prison for life. Then there is the political philosophy in China known as the mass line. It was developed by Mao Zedong and basically means that governance should be made through people. It's literally translated as from the masses to the masses. It basically emphasizes that the government should get its inspiration from the experiences and concerns of ordinary citizens. Leaders should gather feedback and turn it into policy. This idea of gathering feedback from the people is still alive and well to this day. For example, there is the petition and complaint system called Xingfang, where citizens can report issues with government officials, but also neighbors. And in 2025 alone, Chinese authorities reported receiving over 3 million complaints, though, again, I'm not sure how accurate this data is. But in practice, all of this translates into observation. I'd say that people in China are very observant, so you will always feel that people are kind of watching you. And if you're up to no good, there is a high chance you will be reported. I've experienced this in real life too. One time I forgot to feed the neighborhood cats, so I went out to spread the cat food a bit later than usual, and I saw one of my neighbors following me and checking with the flashlight what I was putting on the ground. Another important thing to mention here is that as a foreigner, you are sort of in a special position in China. Back in 2010, this was especially true. There were very few foreigners, and most people didn't really know what to expect from us. So, yes, you would attract a lot of attention and curiosity from people on the streets, but they would most likely not want to mess with you or cause you any trouble. One more thing about China is that a lot of cities have mixed use neighborhoods. So, shops and homes are located in the same street. This keeps most areas busy, well lit, and sort of dense, even after dark. And residential neighborhoods usually have, and had, even back in 2010, security guards who would watch over the area. And since we're talking about infrastructure, this brings us to the next section of the video. You've probably seen videos of people coming to China and being amazed by all the nighttime illumination and calling it the future. You've probably also read the comments below such posts that these people mistake a bunch of LEDs for progress and accusing China of light pollution. I can kind of see both of these points. Yes, big cities in China are very impressive at night. And when you see this for the first time, you probably will be in awe. And it's not just that central areas in the city stay lit up till late, it's the pure scale of it all. China has a very special relationship with light. I saw this first during the Lantern Festival over 10 years ago. This was before LED lights became popular, so what we did was put small candles inside paper lanterns and launch them into the sky. Most families in our residential complex did this, and once you've learned to look past the obvious fire hazard that this tradition posed, it is easily one of the best experiences I've had in China, watching the sky fill up with light. Beyond the Lantern Festival, every holiday, celebration, decoration, and commercial event in China involves light. One could argue that lights and neon signs are a big part of the landscape in a lot of Southeast Asia. Cities like Bangkok, Seoul, Hong Kong, and Tokyo are overloaded with neon signs. But here they are more haphazard and wild. Here they are symbols of survival. Since the 1960s, when small shops started to pop up in post-war Korea and Japan, they had to use the bright, shiny signs to stand out in the crowded streets and get customers through the doors. In China, street lights are more organized. And in big cities like Shanghai, Shenzhen, or Chongqing, they are a showcase. They are meant to send a message. And the message is supposed to say, this city is modern, it's advanced, it's the city of the future. And as we can see, this message is being very well received. Walking in the city center at night in China makes you feel like you're the main character in a video game. Lights are your navigation. And in a big city like Shenzhen, at night you're basically moving from one lit-up skyscraper to another. This makes your night walks in the city look like this, and of course it makes you feel very safe. What gets lost here is the real night sky and the quiet of the mind. Lights are constant stimulation for your brain. That's why babies love them. Visiting a brightly lit city like this makes for wonderful travel stories. But living here puts you in a state of constant sensory overload. There is always somewhere to look and something to see. The space in your head for your own thoughts gets smaller and smaller. Living in a city like Shenzhen makes you feel busy and important. Your brain is telling you that you're always doing something, even if in fact you're not. But we have digressed quite a bit. What I was trying to show is just how available everything in China is after sundown. The night here is almost just as valid as the day. And if you travel here, it means that you get more time to explore. And trust me, there is a lot to see. But I would love to hear what you think. If you've traveled to China, what was your impression? Did you feel safe? And if you've lived in China, do you think the trade-off is worth it? Do the lights of the city make you feel special and make you think it's the future? Or is it all too much? Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next adventure. With a latte, of course. Have a great day.
You can do some moves.